Congress returns to Capitol Hill from recess this week. It's facing a number of crucial deadlines, with millions of Americans still reeling from the economic repercussions of the pandemic. If lawmakers or President Trump do not act and greenlight extensions, a number of heavily relied upon federal assistance programs will expire. Continued unemployment benefits, student loan suspensions, paid sick leave, and eviction moratoriums could all be on the chopping block. Here's how Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and Minority Leader Chuck Schumer address the calls for a new package.
We need to come together. Both sides must give. We have a Democratic House, and in the Senate, there's a need for Democratic votes to pass any bill. So we need a true bipartisan bill, not this is our bill, take it or leave it.
There's no reason, none, why we should not deliver another major pandemic relief package to help the American people through what seems poised to be the last chapters of this battle.
So Nancy Cordes is following all of this and joins me now from Capitol Hill. So Nancy, I think many people were hoping that once the election was done and over with, and the thinking was that it would be done and over with shortly after Election Day, that the Senate would get down to business and start putting together a package and pass it very quickly. In fact, I think McConnell actually sort of promised that. Is Senator McConnell any more supportive of striking a compromise before the end of the year?
Well, he's still very supportive, Anne Marie, of the plan that he and Senate Republicans have put forward, which would amount to about $500 billion in stimulus funds. The problem is that that plan is a quarter of the size of the reduced package that Democrats agreed to, or were close to agreeing to, with the Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin. So there is still a massive gap between the two sides, and the challenge with negotiations is that nobody really knows if they might get a better deal if they just hold out for another few weeks and wait to see what happens in those two Georgia Senate runoffs. If Democrats manage to retake control of the Senate, then they've got a lot more leverage and they can try to wait and pass a much larger package in January or February. If they don't, then Republicans maintain control of the Senate, and it is what it is. You had the Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, saying on the Senate floor yesterday, look, half a loaf is better than no loaf at all. You should take what you can get. And there is, at the same time, this bipartisan group of senators that has kind of coalesced, about 8 to 10 of them. Some of the names you might expect, like Susan Collins of Maine, Mitt Romney of Utah, Chris Coons of Delaware. They've all been trading phone calls, trying to figure out if there is some sort of deal that they could strike before the holidays and then sell to their respective parties. But again, that is going to be a really tall order when you're talking about a $1.5 trillion gap between the two sides, which, involves some really significant policy objectives. Lots more money to state and local governments, for example. That's something Democrats want. Lots more money for unemployment benefits, another big ticket item that Democrats want. Right now, the appetite is not there on the Republican side. So it is really going to be a heavy lift for this bipartisan group, as earnest as they are, to try to reach some kind of agreement that both of their parties can live with right now.
In the meantime, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi previously said that she doesn't want a slimmed down deal. Right. She figures there's already enough slices that she's been willing to remove from this loaf. And the fear is that, more aid will not be considered later. Is this still the position of the House Speaker and Democrats?
She has not signified that she is willing to come down significantly yet, to the consternation, frankly, of some of her more centrist members who feel that perhaps her leverage was greater before the election. Remember, back then, Democrats thought they were going to pick up seats in the House and probably take control of the Senate, and that they would be playing with a much stronger hand after the election. That has not come to pass. They have actually lost seats in the House. They did not manage, at least at this point, to take control of the Senate, though they did pick up a couple of seats. And so there are a lot of Democrats who thought perhaps if she had just cut a deal with the Treasury Secretary before the election, as heavy as a lift as that might have been, that perhaps that they would have gotten more than holding out for the very, very best deal they could get. And so now the question for her is, does she come down significantly? I mean, we're talking in the order of at least $1 trillion, I would say, cutting her plan in half to try to meet Senate Republicans somewhere that they'd be comfortable with, or does she wait to see what happens in these two runoffs? Because after all, if Democrats don't win these two runoffs, they can cut the same deal that they can cut now, they could cut in January. So they may decide they're better off waiting to see what happens and then making a move. But as you know, Anne Marie, and as you've pointed out so many times, you know, people who are sitting at home don't really care about political dynamics and power plays on Capitol Hill. They want to know, are they going to be able to protect their businesses? Are they going to get any help with unemployment insurance? Are they going to be protected from eviction? All of those questions still loom very large for millions of Americans.
So meantime, today, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin and Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, they're going to be testifying on Capitol Hill. The expectation is Secretary Mnuchin is going to be urging Congress to spend unused funds that are still left over from the first go around with the CARES Act. So the big question is, what's going on with this money? Why hasn't it been allocated yet? And what can we expect from today's hearing?
So this is fairly controversial, actually. This is money that had been allocated to the Federal Reserve for a variety of programs to protect the economy, basically from things like the stock market crashing, all kinds of really disastrous effects. And the money was there as sort of a cushion. Some of it has gone out the door, and a lot of it, about $450 billion, hasn't. And so what the Treasury Secretary did with this administration winding down was to say, okay, I am now canceling those programs. We're taking that money back. It is unused. Why doesn't Congress pass a bill basically reallocating that money to be used for in a variety of ways to provide stimulus? Democrats argue that basically what the Treasury Secretary did there is he tied the Federal Reserve's hands in a way that makes it very difficult for the incoming Biden administration to protect the economy from these shocks. So, you know, they say, you know, it's not really a gift from the Treasury Secretary to say, hey, pass another bill with money that you had already allocated the first time. But nevertheless, it is true that that money is still sitting there. It hasn't been used. And you know, you could see a world where a negotiated settlement would involve about $500 billion in new funds, and then some of this money that is still sitting there to get closer to a dollar amount that Democrats could live with. Whether they can strike that deal in the 2 weeks that we have before Congress is set to go home for the holiday break, and frankly, a lot of them want to get out of here even sooner with COVID cases rising. That really remains to be seen. I should point out, you noted that Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chair, is going to be testifying today. He has been very open about the fact that he thinks that the economy needs as much money pumped into it as it can get right now. He has been a big proponent of stimulus, and he is going to testify today, according to his prepared remarks, that actually the pace of economic recovery, which had been very impressive right after some of these lockdowns, has really moderated. It has slowed, and I would expect that he'll make the case once again today that Congress really needs to spend more money rather than less to prevent a recession in 2021.
Yeah, let's hope Congress is listening. Nancy, thank you so much.
You're welcome.